call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
UFC 319 takes place this Saturday, and I'm going to give you my prediction and breakdown for every fight, starting with the prelims all the way up to the main event between Du Plessis and Chimaev. Give you guys a little insight into what I'm thinking and how I'm making my decisions. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Appreciate the comments and the love I've been getting as of late, but let's get into this. So the first fight of the night is Alibi Idiris versus Joseph Morales. This is the Ultimate Fighter finale between these two guys. They won both of their fights on the series, and now they are squaring off for the 4-fight contract. So I'm gonna go with Alibi Idiris in this one. 10-0, undefeated. Joseph Morales, he does have UFC experience. Lost to Davison Figueiredo, lost to Eric Shelton by split decision. Not the most active guy though as of late. I think he's fought 3 times since his last stint in the UFC, which was back in like 2018. Looked good on the Contender Series. I appreciate his call out of the other number 1 guy and getting the finish in that fight. I thought that was really cool. Had kind of a back and forth fight for a second fight where he was kind of controlled on the ground. Alibi Idiris, just very dynamic guy, really good striker on the feet, a lot of weapons, good footwork, good movement, really good cardio, pushes a high pace, mixes everything up well. So I'm gonna go with him. I think Morales' path to victory in this one is to try to get to the ground, look for the back, and I just think Alibi Idiris, I think he's just too good, too well-rounded, very skilled on the feet, very skilled on the ground, a lot of finishing potential as well. So I'm gonna go with Idiris to be able to kind of control and win the fight wherever it goes, whether it's on the feet or if it goes to the ground, win the scramble, stay on top, do damage, and maybe find his own submission. But I am going to go with Idiris. Joseph Morales, he's been training in MMA for a long time, since he was like in his teenage years. I think he's the head instructor at Team Alpha Male as well. So he's got the grappling ability, but I just feel like Alibi Idiris just a little bit more put together. A little bit more well-rounded. I think he's going to be able to push a higher pace, stay out of bad positions, and get a decision win in this one. Dione Barbosa versus Karine Silva. So this fight was on short notice. Karine Silva was supposed to be fighting JJ Aldrich, who had to pull out. So Dione Barbosa is taking this fight on 2 weeks' notice. I might have a different take on this one if Dione Barbosa had a full camp preparing for Karine Silva, just because Karine Silva showed holes in her game in her last fight with Viviane Araújo, really gassed in the 3rd round, wasn't a very good look, but I'm going to go with Karine Silva in this one, just having the full camp. I think she'll have learned from her cardio issues in her last fight, which is back in November. She's very aggressive on the feet, throws hands, looking to hurt her opponents. She's also a jiu-jitsu black belt, the same as Dione Barbosa, who's a jiu-jitsu and a judo black belt. But Silva has really good takedown entries. She'll push her opponents back against the cage, work in the clinch, shoot for takedowns. And Dione Barbosa doesn't have the best takedown defense. I think she's in like the 40% takedown defense. Can be controlled on the ground. We saw that in her fight with Miranda Maverick, was getting kind of out hustled during transitions, and that was on a full camp against somebody like Miranda Maverick. So I'm gonna go with Karine Silva. I think she's gonna be landing with a little bit more consequence on the feet, mixing things up very well. Dione Barbosa, she's a very polished striker for somebody who's primarily known as a grappler. I think she was even like on the Olympic team in Brazil for judo, but I think Karine Silva a little bit more tenacious, looking to do a little bit more damage on the feet, keeping Dione Barbosa guessing, pushing her back, and I think she'll have, granted she didn't have the best gas tank in her last fight, I think that she'll be the one going in just a little bit more prepared in this one. So I'm going to go with Karine Silva to get this one done. I think she can do enough throughout the 3 rounds to get a decision. Nursulton Ruziboev takes on Bryan Battle. So this is an interesting fight. Nursulton Ruziboev used to fight at middleweight and welterweight. I think he's moving down to welterweight for this fight against Bryan Battle. And Bryan Battle coming off of that not so impressive win over Randy Brown in his last fight. Very aggressive dude, likes to push forward and kind of bully guys, push opponents back against the cage to land strikes, has decent cardio, had really good cardio in his last fight, even though he missed weight, but not the best defensively. He doesn't move his head well. He's there to be hit. He's getting hit a lot by Kevin Jousset in their fight. Kevin Jousset is more of a judoka, not really known as a striking heavy type guy. So Nursulton Ruziboev, tall guy, going to be hard to find. Throws really strong, powerful punches down the pipe. I think he can catch Bryan Battle as he's kind of crashing in. Battle likes to work in the clinch, kind of beat guys up there, and I feel like Ruziboev's height, controlling underhooks, doing his own damage in the clinch. I just think that he'll be able to kind of nullify that clinch game of Bryan Battle, keep him at bay on the feet with his hard straight punches. They're going to have pretty identical reaches, which is crazy because Battle's going to be like 4 or 5 inches shorter, but I think Ruziboev can win the striking game. I think he's the more polished guy. I think he's got more power in his punches, and I think if it does go to the ground, he's got a lot of submission ability as well. So I'm going to go with Nursulton Ruziboev. I think he can chin Bryan Battle, who's been shown to be able, that he can get hurt, was hurt by Tresean Gore. Was getting tagged a lot, too much for my liking in the Jusei fight. So I'm going to go with Ruziboev, just a little bit more experience, not a little bit, a lot more experience, a little bit more finishing potential wherever the fight goes. So Ruziboev, I think he can get the KO over Bryan Battle as he comes in. Edson Barboza taking on Drakkar Klose. So both these guys getting up there in age. Barboza 39, Drakkar Klose 37. Drakkar Klose, really good boxing. Fights orthodox, fights southpaw, good leg kicks, looks to kind of get in your face and pressure you. Has a really good wrestling pedigree as well. Taking on Edson Barboza, who some of the best kicks in the game. Doesn't use a lot of work with his hands with his boxing. And it looks like he's been kind of slowing down as of late. He's taking a lot of damage, so I'm going to go with Drakkar Klose in this one. I think he's just going to be able to mix it up a little bit better. Putting on a constant measured pace against Barboza, kind of crowding him, not letting him into open space to start ripping with his kicks. I think he'll get him in the clinch, do a little bit of dirty boxing, sap Edson's energy. Edson's going to have like a 5-inch reach advantage, but he just doesn't have the best hands, so I don't really consider that in this fight. I think that, Drakkar Klose is the better boxer. I think Barboza's takedown defense is really starting to wane. He was taken down 4 times in his last fight against Lerone Murphy. He was taken down like 4 times by Michal, so I think Klose is going to see some success in, mixing up his boxing, pressuring him back, tiring him out, and getting the win in this one. Alexander Hernandez takes on Chase the Dream Hooper. I'm going to go with Chase Hooper in this one. Only 25 years old, going to be making drastic improvements. Even since the first time we saw him in the UFC, light years better. Ever evolving stand-up. Looks like kind of a complete fighter now, whereas before he was just more of a grappler, using his length very well. Growing into his frame, he's 6'1", 74-inch reach versus Alexander Hernandez, who's 5'9", 72-inch reach. But Chase Hooper just looks like he's getting kind of more filled out, looking like he's getting like much more stronger, more put together in terms of his total skill set. I just kind of see him opening up with his strikes, crashing into Alexander Hernandez, looking to get it to the ground. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, very high level. So is Hernandez, but Hernandez uses it more defensively. He uses it kind of to stay safe on the ground. He's not really looking to offensively grapple and find submissions, whereas Chase Hooper, very, very dangerous on the ground, really good transitions, ability to control guys on the ground. He had a lot of success against Jim Miller, who's a very high-level black belt in his last fight, so just very dangerous submission artist. I could see him finding front chokes on the feet. I could see him even hurting Alex Hernandez on the feet, who he's going to be afraid to get taken down. And that seems to really open up people's striking, is if you have a very legit takedown threat. So Hernandez kind of squeaking by wins in his last few fights against Kurt Hallbaugh, Austin Hubbard. I think those guys are underrated, but I just think Hooper is going to be the more skilled guy. He's got tons of momentum. I just think at this point in both their careers, we're going to see Chase Hooper just constantly getting better and better, whereas Alex Hernandez, we kind of know what we're getting ourselves into when we're fighting him. So I think Chase Hooper is going to be able to develop a good game plan to put a lot of pressure on Hernandez, put him in uncomfortable positions, eventually get him to the ground and find the submission, or do enough, control on the feet, on the ground to get a decision. But I do think Chase Hooper gets this one done. Lupita Godinez takes on Jessia Andrade. So Jessia Andrade, tons of UFC experience. Every time I see her fight, I think she's like 38 years old, but then you look and see that she's like 33 years old. Just as crazy. She's been in the UFC for so long. But you kind of have the pathway to victory against Jessia Andrade, which is get her on the ground, control her, and beat her up there. And I think that's what Lupita Godinez is going to do. Lupi's got good boxing. She's good everywhere, very strong wrestler. And I think that's what she's going to do. She's going to mix it up a little bit. get Jessica Andrade to the ground and just kind of control her and kind of beat her wherever this fight goes to get a decision. I could see her losing maybe a round, maybe losing the first round, but as the fight progresses, I see her grappling starting to take over. Jessica Andrade was just recently out-grappled by Jasmine Jasudavicius, got choked out. You know, she's been choked out by Tatiana Suarez, Erin Blanchfield, so it seems like if you've got a pretty good grappling wrestling game, you can do pretty well against Jessica Andrade, who very powerful on the feet. You got to stay safe there, but I trust Lupita Godinez's boxing and her defense to stay safe, find the takedowns, to get the win in this one. Gerald Meerschaert takes on Michal Oleksiejczuk. So GM3, been in the UFC for a long time. Absolutely, you know, a stud on the ground. Very dangerous if it goes to the ground. And Michal Oleksiejczuk has shown a propensity to get taken down and subbed at times. But you look at his career, and outside of the Caio Borralho fight, a lot of those the takedown and grappling issues he had was at 205, where he was fighting much bigger guys. Now he's at 185 pounds. I could argue that he could make 170 pounds. You know, he's not the most cut up guy, but I feel like not having to kill himself to make that weight cut allows him to use his kind of marauding style, where he's just, you know, pushing forward, putting a high pace on guys, really good cardio, putting a lot of volume out there. So I think that's what he does in this one. Just gets in Gerald Meerschaert's face, doing a lot of damage. He's just an absolute dog. He's very tough. You got to really, you know, take it to him to beat him. You know, I think he let his arm get dislocated or broken against Kevin Holland. Went out against Michal Ferreira, so just no quit in the guy. He's going to be pushing forward, looking to get the kill over Gerald Meerschaert. And he's got a lot of power in the hands. You know, he dropped Sharon Magomedov, dropped Kevin Holland, went to a decision at 205 with Dustin Jacoby, so very highly skilled on the feet. And Gerald Meerschaert, long storied career, taking a lot of damage, was dropped by Rainier de Ritter in his last fight, so he can be hurt, he can be chinned. Khamzat Chimaev put him out cold, so I think that's what happens in this one. I think Oleksiejczuk can find the finish on the feet. Not a bad dog pick though for Gerald Meerschaert. Michal Oleksiejczuk pushes forward, he crashes in. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here for Meerschaert to get a takedown and to take over from there. I think if it does go to the ground in GM3, you know, he's not stunned or hurt anything. I think he has a lot of potential to finish the fight by submission, but I am going to go with Oleksiejczuk to get this one done by KO. Bobby Green takes on Diego Ferreira. So another one of these matchups where it's, you know, two crafty veterans squaring off against each other. Diego Ferreira, 40 years old, taking on Bobby Green, who is 38. I believe, but I'm going to go Diego Ferreira in this one. You know, I think he's just more well-rounded. I think he has more finishing potential wherever the fight goes. Very crispy hands, a lot of power on the feet, good chin, very tough. Has a really good scrambling ability when the fight goes to the ground. Third-degree jiu-jitsu black belt, tons of experience in the UFC. Same with Bobby Green, though. He's got a lot of experience, but he is kind of chinny as of late. He's been getting hurt. Got faceplant KO'd by Mauricio Hufi only like 5 months ago. Was finished by Paddy Pimblett before that by triangle choke. Been KO'd several times, so you can hurt him, you can finish him. I feel like Diego Ferreira, he's just got to stay safe on the feet and look to land strikes on Bobby Green, hurt him, get him out of there, maybe get him to the ground and find the submission. But I just think that Ferreira has too many tools, whereas Bobby Green, he's looking to keep it on the feet, work that Philly shell, keep his hands down, look for those weird angled punches to land. But I trust Ferreira. I think that he can win this fight on the feet. I think he can take it to the ground and beat him there. I am concerned about his cardio, because at times it does look like it's lacking, but then other times, you know, in the Rumbetsky fight, he's getting hurt, having an absolute brawl, and still able to get the finish in the third round. So I don't think Bobby Green's gonna be able to push such a high pace to where Ferreira is, you know, gassing and not able to push 3 hard rounds. So I'm gonna go Diego Ferreira to get this one done. I think he can get the finish over Bobby Green. Tim Elliott takes on Kai Asakura. So this is a interesting one. You know, Tim Elliott, tons of experience. I think he's been out of the UFC for like 18 months now. So coming into this one, with kind of a layoff, Kai Asakura made his UFC debut against Pantoja. Couldn't really get anything going, was getting taken down, eventually got finished. So I think the kryptonite to Kai Asakura is obviously his takedown defense. Other than that, his striking is very good. He's very athletic, very explosive. Former Ryzen champ. Loves the knees, the flying knees. Is a jiu-jitsu purple belt, but kind of a victim when the fight goes to the ground. think he's got like 60% takedown defense, was taken down like 3 times by Pantoja. So I'm going to go with Tim Elliott. You know, I think Tim Elliott, he's got that wrestling-heavy approach. He's very awkward on the feet, where I don't think Kai Asakura is going to have a lot of success finding him with his hands. Elliott was like a state wrestling champ, 2-time All-American at the University of Central Oklahoma. I think he was a JUCO national champion as well. So I think his funky fighting style is just going to give Kai Asakura a lot of problems. He's got really good cardio as well to shoot for takedowns, throw hands, and just rinse and repeat that for 3 rounds. And he's got a really good chin. I don't think he's ever been knocked down. He's never been KO'd. He's fought really good competition, gave Demetrius Johnson a really good fight back in the day. So I just think he's a little bit more well-rounded, put together. Definitely not the best striker, but I think his takedown threat will open up his striking, and his striking open up his takedown threat, and vice versa. So I think he's got the better cardio, the better overall skill set in terms of cage fighting. So I'm going to go with him to get the win. I think he's like a plus 300 underdog, but I like him in this fight. I like his fighting style, his toughness, his grit. And I think he can do enough to get a decision in this one over Kai Asakura. Jared Cannonier takes on Michael Venom Page. Jared Cannonier, you know, getting up there in age. I think he's like 40 years old. 41 years old. He's taken a lot of damage as of late. He was getting hurt in that Gregory Rodriguez fight. Granted, he gritted through it. Rodriguez kind of gassed and he got the finish, but before that was hurt bad round 5 against Kyle Braulio, where he just kind of fell completely back. Somehow survived the fight, but TKO'd by Nassourdine Imavov before that, was hurt by Marvin Vettori in round 1 of their fight before that one. So I got to go with Michael Page. You know, Michael Page is just very dangerous on the feet, very fast, very elusive style. I just think MVP is going to get ahead of him too early, beat up his legs, keep him at bay, managing the distance. He'll be the faster fighter. He's taken less damage in his career. He's younger, but he's still 38 years old. I just don't think Cannonier at this point in his career will be able to find MVP. His pathway to victory is obviously to get him into the clinch, or maybe get him to the ground where he can use his really effective ground and pound, but I just don't see that happening against Michael Page, who's going to be very elusive, going to be the taller guy with a slight reach advantage. So I'm going to go with MVP to get this one done. I think that he might be able to chin Jared Cannonier as he's kind of pushing forward, standing tall. But more than likely, I see Michael Page picking him at range, kind of point striking at times, and winning a decision in this one. Geoff Neal takes on Carlos Praches. I'm going to go with Carlos Praches in this one. You know, didn't have the best performance in his last fight against Ian Gary, but Ian Gary is one of those guys who kind of dances along the edge and point strikes, who's having some decent success shooting takedowns. But when somebody stands in front of Carlos Prates and looks to engage and really looks to fight, I think that's where he shines. You know, he's got like 100 Muay Thai fights, lived in Thailand for like 6 years, just very good striking, very good hands, very good countering ability, great knees up the middle, really good teep kicks to keep guys at range. He's just very patient. He's smooth, methodical, doesn't really force anything, very accurate, very efficient, really good defensively as well. So I don't see Geoff Neal being able to hit him. You know, he's very good at, you know, staying safe, not taking a lot of strikes. Geoff Neal kind of just moves forward, moves backward, doesn't really cut angles that well, doesn't move the best. I think he's going to be kind of a standing target for Carlos Prates. He does have very slick boxing and a good chin, good takedown defense, but I just see him kind of walking straight at Prates, kind of following him around the ring, and Prates being a little bit too slick, a little bit too dynamic, has the better weapons, can kind of keep him at bay with his kicking. I think he's going to have better timing. I just think he'll be kind of frustrating Geoff Neal, who's going to start crashing in. I think he's going to get cracked. I think Prates is going to catch him with a counter and get him out of there. So I'm going to go Carlos Prates to get this fight by KO. Lerone Murphy takes on Aaron Pico. I know a lot of people are high on Lerone Murphy. I'm just not very convinced by him. You know, he's a good striker, picks at range, feints well, good leg kicks, spinning back kicks, but, you know, he can be kind of pushed around the cage, can be hurt, was dropped by Ige in their fight. Not the best grappler either. Jiu-Jitsu purple belt, but has like a 52% takedown defense. Emmett took him down 4 times. Gabriel Santos took him down 5 times. Tukagov took him down 6 times. And he's going up against Aaron Pico, who is probably one of the most skilled MMA fighters in any promotion right now. You know, he's only 28 years old, barely into his prime, Golden Gloves boxer. He was I think he got second place in like the Olympic trials when he was like 19 years old, and I heard there was like 10 NCAA D1 champions in his roster. But state and national wrestling champion, really good boxing, has great hand speed, good uppercuts, times everything very well, rips to the body, just mixes up his targets very well. Very fast hands, tons of power. Is kind of chinny. You know, he lost by KO a few times about 6 years ago. Lost his pro debut by submission back in the day, but ever since then he's looked very good. Tons of finishing potential. I think he's going to be the better striker, the better grappler. I think he's going to put it all together much better than Lerone Murphy. Be able to dictate kind of where this fight takes place. He hasn't fought in 18 months, and this is his UFC debut on a huge stage, UFC pay-per-view, co-main event, but I just think he's more skilled, has more ways to win. And I think he gets the KO over Lerone Murphy. I think he's the better striker. I think his takedown ability is going to really open up his hands, you know, keeping Lerone Murphy guessing. And I think he's going to find the chin of Murphy, who can be hit, who has been hurt in the past. And I just think he's a little overrated. So I'm going to go with Aaron Pico to get this one done by finish. On to the main event, Dricus du Plessis taking on Khamzat Chimaev. Hot take, I think this is the most undeserved title shot that we've seen in a long time. You know, Chimaev burst onto the scene back in COVID in 2020. He's only fought 8 times since then. Really hasn't fought top-tier middleweights to warrant a title shot. Beat Robert Whittaker, and that's about it. Other than Gerald Meerschaert, who he beat 5 years ago. He's been beating welterweights, former lightweights. Even Robert Whittaker, who's a 185er, former champion, he used to fight at 170. And he's kind of a smaller 185er. And he got that win, but Robert Whittaker hasn't looked the best as of late. Kamaru Usman, I argue that he won that fight, moving up a weight class on short notice. I think that he won 2 of the 3 rounds to get that decision. He got the win over Kevin Holland, who, you know, Kevin Holland always struggles with very strong grapplers, who's also a 170-pounder. Gilbert Burns gave him a hell of a fight. Dropped him a couple times, I think, and Gilbert Burns used to fight at 155 pounds. So I'm going to go with Dricus du Plessis in this one, and it's because I think Dricus du Plessis is the better striker, and I think he's got the size, the cardio, and the 5-round experience to give Chimaev problems. Du Plessis is awkward on the feet, and people make fun of him for his funky style, but it's effective, and he's a very high-level kickboxer. He's got a lot of, you know, really good kicks, really powerful punches, awkward blitzing style that catches guys. And I think Khamzat Chimaev's takedown threat really comes from you know, he shoots these blast doubles against guys, and it's effective at the beginning, but as the fight progresses, he's kind of falling on his face and not really getting his takedowns going as he gets more tired. We saw that in the Usman fight. We saw that in the Gilbert Burns fight. I think his striking isn't as good as we think it is. I think it's more successful than it should be, just because people are more worried about his takedowns. He wasn't having the best success striking against Kamaru Usman, who I don't think is anywhere near the level of striker that du Plessis is. He wasn't really throwing punches, just kind of switching stances, throwing kicks, and he got outstruck by Usman in the 3rd round of that fight. He was going tit for tat with Burns, who's a smaller fighter, less powerful than Dricus du Plessis. Like I said, got dropped twice. Like, Gilbert Burns was having a lot of success in that fight. And I look at these performances that he's had as of late, and I'm like, there's no way that you're going to be able to do that against somebody like Dricus du Plessis, who's massive for the weight class. Not only is he massive, he's got the cardio to go with it. Like, you'll see some of these guys that are yoked up, they're powerful, but they're not able to push a high pace or to go for 5 rounds, and Dricus du Plessis has done that, and he's shown that he can do that. He's gone 5 rounds multiple times, whereas Chimaev, he's gone 5 rounds 0 times. You know, a lot of his fights are ending in the 1st round, the 2nd round, and every time he goes to a decision, he's struggling. And, you know, I think that he's losing those fights. You know, I can make a case that he lost the Burns and the Usman fight just off of, you know, damage and how those fights were. I think that he got some favorable decisions in those fights with some scoring. You know, every other fight, or each one of those fights that, you know, starting in the 2nd round and the 2nd round and the 3rd round, he's starting to gas, he's starting to slow down, he's starting to look a little bit more sloppy. So Chimaev is not a 5-round fighter. If he can't get this fight done in, you know, the 1st, the 2nd round, I think the odds are drastically going to swing in the way of du Plessis, who it's just the overall better fighter, I think. You know, he's got the wrestling ability. He's a good striker. He's the total package. Whereas Chimaev, you know, he's more of a grappler, looking to take the back, looking to control guys, get the submission. I just don't think he'll be able to handle the size, like the physicality, the pace of Du Plessis. Another thing that I alluded to earlier is he's looking really good, and he's manhandling guys that are much smaller than him. You know, you look at Gilbert Burns, former lightweight, Kevin Holland, kind of a wiry guy, not the biggest, strongest guy. Kamaru Usman, smaller than him. Robert Whittaker, smaller than Du Plessis for middleweight. The closest thing that the closest fighter that Khamzat had, or the closest fighter to Du Plessis that Khamzat's fought is GM3 in terms of total size, or sorry, in terms of sheer size, and GM3 is nowhere near the level of Du Plessis. So I think that Du Plessis is going to wrestle with Chimaev at the beginning. I don't really think he has a choice. I don't think he's going to defend the takedowns by any means, but I think he's going to entertain the grappling, stay safe, and just look to make Chimaev work. I don't think he's going to accept bottom position. I don't think he's just going to sit there and let Chimaev take his back. I think he's going to be looking to transition, looking to scramble, really making Chimaev work to take the back or to find dominant position. I don't think he's going to find the back on Du Plessis, but I even think Dricus might initiate the wrestling, you know, just to make him work, just to make him think about the takedown threat later in the fight to open up his striking. And I just think he's going to tax Chimaev's gas tank for the first couple rounds, maybe even into the third round, and then eventually start to take over and put it on him. I think he wears him down, gets him tired to where he's kind of falling on his face, shooting takedowns, sloppy on the feet, and I really think he'll start to take over in terms of the striking and get the finish. Du Plessis just has that dog in him, man. I don't think he's going to get bullied. I don't think he's going to get bossed around the cage like Chimaev's been able to do in the past. And you can see Chimaev really lose confidence in some of these fights. When they're not going his way, when he's not getting his takedowns, when he's starting to get hit on the feet, you can see him start to lose some confidence, start to fade. And I feel like he wears that on his face a lot, where he's just like, oh no, like this isn't going my way. I'm not getting these guys out of here immediately. And he really has to dig deep to win these fights. And he's only able to do that because it's against less skilled guys who are gassed themselves and who are much smaller than him. And now he's fighting a guy who's highly skilled, is going to be him same size, and I don't know. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to crumble in the face of the pressure against Du Plessis, and I think Du Plessis is going to eventually start to take over rounds 4, rounds 5, and get the finish, get the KO over Khamzat Chimaev. So let me know what you guys think. Appreciate the comments and everything that I'm getting from you guys, but thanks for watching. And again, if you want a little bit more of an in-depth look, check out my channel and check out the individual videos that I have. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.